Most intervals come in two flavors. There is a bright, happy version and a darker, sadder version, sitting right next to each other. A major third and a minor third. A major sixth and a minor sixth. A major seventh and a minor seventh. In every one of those pairs the two notes are only a single semitone apart, yet that tiny gap is the whole difference between a sound that lifts you and a sound that aches. The mood lives in that one small step. But for intervals flatly refuse to play along. They have no happy form and no sad form at all. There is no major version of them and no minor version of them. They come in one quality only, and that quality has a special name. We call them perfect. The unison, the perfect fourth, the perfect fifth, and the octave. This whole episode is about the simple reason why those four stand apart from all the others. By the end you will know exactly what makes an interval perfect, why these four sound so open and grounded, why the same one can sit happily in a major key and a minor key, and how to bend one when a piece of music needs you to. So let us meet the four, and play each one in turn from the same starting note, the C in the middle of the keyboard. The first is the unison. Zero distance, the same note twice, a pitch sitting directly on top of itself. Play it and there is nothing at all to clash, because the two notes really are one and the same. It is the most perfect blend there can be, so perfect it almost disappears. Next, count 5 semitones up from C and you land on F. That is the perfect fourth, solid and just a little hollow, strong but somehow unfinished, as if it is leaning toward something. 2 more steps, 7 semitones up from C, lands on G. That is the perfect fifth, the most open, ringing sound of the four, wide and confident and completely at rest. And finally, 12 semitones up returns to C, the same letter a whole octave higher, the octave, the widest of the family, the same note reborn up top. Listen to them again as a set, unison, fourth, fifth, octave, and notice they all share a certain quality. None of them sounds sweet, none of them sounds mournful. They sound clear and steady, like an open doorway rather than a face with an expression. The reason for that family resemblance is hiding in the numbers. Every musical note is a vibration, and a faster vibration gives a higher pitch. When two notes sound together, your ear is really comparing how their vibrations line up against each other. The perfect intervals win this comparison because they sit on the simplest possible ratios. The unison is 1-to-1, the two vibrations completely identical, marching in perfect lockstep. The octave is 2-to-1, the upper note vibrating exactly twice for every single cycle of the lower one, so the two waves meet up again and again with clockwork regularity. The perfect fifth is 3-to-2, almost as tidy, and the perfect fourth is 4-to-3. Those are the four simplest whole number ratios there are, 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-2, 4-to-3, and that is the whole secret. When the ratio is this simple, the two vibrations lock together neatly and repeat in a short, tidy pattern, so the ear reads the blend as smooth and settled. Push the ratio higher, to something like 16-to-15, and the waves only line up after a long, messy stretch, and the notes audibly rub and beat against each other. So perfect is not a value judgment and it is not about being pretty. Perfect just means the ratio could not be cleaner. That clean ratio is also why these four sound hollow and open rather than cheerful or gloomy. Think about a chord for a moment. A major chord sounds happy and a minor chord sounds sad, and the note that decides which one you hear is the third in the middle. The third is the note that colors the mood, the single ingredient that tips a chord bright or dark. Now here is the key fact. A perfect interval has no third inside it at all. There is simply no note there to make it happy and no note there to make it sad. It is open, neutral, uncolored. Here is a neat proof of exactly that. The same perfect fifth, C up to G, fits inside a major key and a minor key without changing one single note. Listen to that fifth sitting under a cheerful, major sound, the rest of the chord around it bright and warm. Now listen to the very same two notes, then under a darker, minor sound. The notes of the fifth never move, not by a hair, because there is no mood locked inside them to clash with either world. The major notes can come and go, the minor notes can come and go, and the fifth sits there unbothered through both. That is precisely why these intervals feel like a stable frame rather than a feeling. Of the four, the perfect fifth deserves a closer look, because after the octave it is the most stable interval there is. Builders and engineers would call it load-bearing. Stack a low note and the fifth above it, with nothing in between, and you get the bare bones of a power chord, the open, driving sound at the heart of rock and metal guitar. There is no third in a power chord, which is exactly why it works under heavy distortion where a fuller chord would turn to mud. The fifth is so consonant that it stays clear and powerful no matter how hard you push it. Listen to that fifth ring out, no third, just root and fifth, pure muscle. The fifth is also how instruments find their tuning. A violinist tunes one string, then sets the next string a perfect fifth above it, then the next a fifth above that, building the whole instrument out of stacked fifths, because the ear can judge a pure fifth more accurately than almost any other interval. Stack 12 of those fifths and you very nearly arrive back where you began, and that near miss is the seed of the entire circle of fifths. The perfect fifth is, in a very real sense, the load-bearing beam of Western harmony. Now, perfect does not mean unbreakable. You can alter a perfect interval, and the moment you do, it loses the name perfect and takes on a new character entirely. Raise a perfect interval by one semitone, stretching it that bit wider, and it becomes augmented. Lower it by one semitone, squeezing it that bit narrower, and it becomes diminished. Watch this happen to the steadiest interval we have. Take that rock-solid perfect fifth, C up to G, and narrow it by a single semitone, pulling the top note down from G to F sharp. Listen carefully to what you get. The stable, grounded fifth collapses into the most restless sound in all of music, the tritone, the diminished fifth. The interval medieval musicians were so unnerved by that they nicknamed it the devil in music. One semitone is the entire distance between the most settled interval there is and the most unsettled one there is. That is how finely balanced these things are. So perfect is a specific, named quality, not a guarantee of safety, and it always sits right next door to its altered neighbors, just one small step away from tension. Let us walk the keyboard one last time and really hear the open, grounded character of each perfect interval, side by side with a colored one so the contrast is obvious. The unison, the same note, nothing to disagree about, the purest blend there is. The perfect fourth, solid and faintly hollow, strong but leaning. Now drop a major third in beside it, C up to E, for semitones, and hear at once how that one sounds sweeter and warmer, almost smiling, because it has the very mood the perfect intervals deliberately lack. That warmth is the third doing its job. Now back to the perfect fifth, wide open and ringing, completely without an opinion, and finally the octave, the same note reborn an octave higher, the frame closing around everything in between. Bright versus open. Colored versus clear. The perfect intervals are not louder or fancier or more important than the others. They are the steady, neutral ones, the scaffolding the colored intervals hang their feelings on. Take the scaffolding away and the colors have nothing to stand on. So that is why we call them perfect. The unison, the fourth, the fifth, and the octave sit on the four simplest frequency ratios, 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 2, and 4 to 3, which makes them smooth, open, and stable, with no third inside to turn them happy or sad, which in turn is exactly why the same perfect fifth fits a major key and a minor key without flinching. They are not the most colorful intervals in music, and they were never meant to be. They are the stable frame that everything else in music hangs on, the fixed points the more expressive intervals are measured against. From here the next step is the fine print, how quality and spelling name every interval precisely, major and minor, augmented and diminished, sharps and flats, so that any two notes you can find on the keyboard always get one exact, agreed name. That is where we go next.